Fantastic. Okay. So dewatering, we talk a lot about the threat of the Delta Conveyance Project and the dangers to the ecosystems from diverting too much fresh water, which probably every time you talk to me, you hear me say that the problem is we can't divert too much fresh water from the Bay Area or any other place. And that usually ends up with conversations about conservation and efficiency. But in these threads of conversations that we've had about the last few years in the topic of dewatering, after sharing a really alarming fact with the Metropolitan Water District's board earlier this summer about dewatering in the Purple Line construction, interest has really grown on the topic of dewatering, at least within our group, in the Stop the Delta Tunnel Working Group. The Angeles Water Committee, they are basically experts on dewatering at this point, but for those of us who it's a newer topic, we wanted to do a webinar on this. So it's definitely an area that needs more research and more action, not only by environmentalist groups, but by agencies everywhere, water agencies. Really, this is just not something people talk about. There was not enough information out there. So, that alone is a problem, but then enforcement is really lacking. And that's a bummer given the state of climate crisis that we're in. So, there's a lot of work to do. Most impressive to me is that a lot of this conversation started with one man, with Jay Jacobson, who noticed that some trees were not doing very well. And then it led him and the Sierra Club down quite a rabbit hole, I would say. A lot of information, and a lot of work that they've done since his little discovery. And that's really my favorite thing about the Sierra Club, that every project or campaign always begins with a volunteer saying, hey, we need to do something about this. That's the best part. So what is dewatering? Dewatering can be defined as the process of draining rainwater or groundwater from an excavated area before construction can begin. Groundwater is removed from the site using deep wells, well points, eductors, or conventional sump and pump methods. Dewatering may be temporary during construction activities or permanent for the life of the facility. The water is either treated and reused on site for construction purposes, it is diverted to the sewer system, or it is sent to storm drains where it empties out in area wetlands or the ocean. Sometimes illegally, this happens without treating the water. Our main concerns are the wasting of this dewatered water if it is not reused, and the potential contamination if it reaches wetlands and oceans untreated. We're all aware that the planet is not just warming, but it's boiling, and that drought has plagued the West for 2 decades now, and we're in an era of climate whiplash. California relies heavily on imported water. Southern California receives up to 65% of its water from imported sources via the Colorado River, Owens Valley, or occupied Paiute lands, or from the Bay Delta. With climate change worsening, imported water is only becoming more unreliable, but sadly so is groundwater. This is due in part to climate change reducing the ability to replenish it, the geology of the soil, the cost and feasibility of replenishment, and the rate at which we take water faster than we can put it back. Global warming is shrinking the snowpack that feeds rivers and tributaries. Rising temperatures mean that plants need more water. Hotter temperatures cause more surface water to evaporate, leaving less water to percolate to the ground to replenish aquifers. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA, is a step in the right direction for groundwater replenishment, and you can learn more about that and about the Act in our Subsidence webinar, which we did a while ago. I am happy to send that to you if you can't find it. And you can actually monitor California's groundwater live on the SGMA website. Today, August 30th, 43% of California's wells are below normal levels, even after this record wet year and the recent hurricane. Groundwater accounts for 40% of the state's total annual water supply in normal years and almost 60% in drought years. 85% of Californians rely on groundwater for at least some part of their drinking water, with some relying on groundwater or their own wells completely. In California, the aquifers in at least 76 basins last year were being overdrafted or pumped out faster than they could be replenished by precipitation. The effects of overpumping of groundwater have continued to affect rural communities where some people have to rely on truck shipments of water to fill their household tanks. The state has counted 249 dry household wells this year. This June, NASA scientists reported that in this year's wet season, the rain and snow increase equated to a rise of about 20 inches if that water were spread across the watersheds of the Central Valley. That's about 2.5 times the total storage capacity of Lake Mead, which is the country's largest reservoir, or about 58% of the volume of Lake Tahoe. That gain was roughly double the annual average recorded since 2002. Scientists don't know yet how much of it will make its way underground, and that it will likely only recoup a portion of the groundwater that has been extracted to supply agriculture during years of severe drought. The state has also been conducting aerial surveys to map optimal areas for groundwater recharge. The New York Times reported only Monday on the state of groundwater around the country, and I put the link in the chat and I can send it to you again. It's also in the agenda because, oh my goodness, it's fascinating, but it's pretty scary and you will probably want to read it. Don't read it right now, but in a little bit, read it later. And yikes. The takeaway is that the depletion of groundwater is barely regulated. The federal government plays almost no role, and individual states have complicated and often really weak rules. Groundwater supplies 90% of the country's water supplies. We are seeing groundwater depletion in areas that maybe would never come to mind for you, all over the country. The approaches to the loss of groundwater vary really widely between counties and states, and a few have only seemed to figure it out. Coastal cities, even in the Northeast, are seeing their groundwater contaminated by saltwater from sea level rise and saltwater intruding to replace the depleted freshwater. In some areas, homes cannot be built on land that relies on groundwater, and in other areas, the ground and roads are buckling from subsidence, which we've seen here. Several states, including Texas, Oklahoma, and Colorado, have rules that allow groundwater to be pumped from some regions until it's gone. That blows my mind. Some areas even have set official timelines for how quickly they plan to use up groundwater over the next few decades. So they know they're not getting any more, but they're okay with just using it all up. Even in places with extreme rains because of climate change, the heavier rainfall typically races away quickly to the ocean before it can sit and soak into the aquifer below, which we've seen all over California. As rising temperatures shrink rivers in much of the country, farmers and towns are pumping more groundwater to make up the difference. This pumping uses lots of energy, creating lots of emissions and contributing further to the global warming that is creating the rising temperatures. It's a painful cycle and it's really self-defeating. By draining aquifers that filled up over thousands or millions of years, we risk losing access to that water in the future when droughts may be even more severe. So, quick facts from our previous webinar on subsidence. Land has sunk as much as 30 feet since the 1920s in parts of the San Joaquin Valley. Dry conditions set the stage for subsidence to worsen as the San Joaquin Valley relies more heavily on groundwater than surface water. In a century's time, the cumulative overdraft of the aquifer is more than 120 million acre feet in the Central Valley. That's the equivalent to draining Lake Tahoe dry. I know that's another Lake Tahoe reference, but I love Lake Tahoe. Groundwater depletion leads to land subsidence, a situation in which the ground lowers. And you can see that here with Joe Poland. We love this guy. When large amounts of groundwater have been withdrawn from the ground, the rock and soil compact because the water is partly responsible for holding the ground up. When the water is withdrawn, the rock and soil falls in on itself, causing the ground to sink. When it happens under your home or business, this means the foundations of your home can become unbalanced. It moves the walls and the floors of your home from their original groundwork, and it can lead to cracks and destabilization of your house. This then affects your property value. It happens to roads, making them uneven. Quick tangent. Subsidence under the California aqueduct causes the aqueduct to require pumping to move the water, making it the single biggest energy user in the state of California. Californians have been debating who should pay for that for over $100 million in repairs. Should it be the statewide taxpayers, some of whom don't even receive water from the aqueduct? Should it be local irrigation districts, or should it be the farmers who live near the aqueduct who have severely overdrafted the groundwater? As the water table lowers, well owners have to drill further and further underground to reach water, which is expensive and it's inaccessible for disadvantaged communities, especially in Pixley, East Porterville, and Allentown in the Central Valley. That area has been hit really hard by well depletion. Pesticides and arsenic are heavier than water, and then they sink lower into the basins. So as the drill goes lower and that gets deeper, it brings up that increasingly contaminated groundwater, which is used either as drinking water in some areas or it's sprayed on the crops that we all eat. So with the future of groundwater in peril and groundwater replenishment complicated, not just in the Central Valley, but all over California and all over the country, we should be conserving every last drop and making sure that it's not only safe, but usable. We shouldn't be losing any of our groundwater to dewatering. So let's talk about a case study in West Hollywood. This is really where it all kind of began. The Angeles Chapter Water Committee has been dealing with dewatering in West Hollywood for several years. The sub-aquifer under West Hollywood, or WeHo, is being depleted of water every day. This has been brought to the attention of West Hollywood City Council, West Hollywood Planning Commission, and the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board by residents and the Angeles Chapter Water Committee. In 2018, resident Jay Jacobson noticed his drought-tolerant acacia trees and other neighborhood trees dying off. Intrigued, he asked an arborist to diagnose his dying trees. That started him on this whole journey. The Hollywood Sub-Basin is what is considered a shallow water basin, which means that the water in that aquifer sits at about 8 to 10 feet below the surface of the street. The trees of WeHo had gotten used to having access to this water, and suddenly that water source was no longer present for their roots to tap into. You can see this on the map, the red X's are the trees. There's been a huge increase in construction because the water table is so readily accessed during construction. With the groundwater being 8 feet below ground, construction companies apply for and are issued NPDES permits to pump the water out of their construction zones so they can build. NPDES permits are issued by the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board. For properties with underground construction, developers are required by the city's Building and Safety Division to have a geotechnical engineer assess any potential impact to the surrounding areas. According to a report from the West Hollywood Community Development Department, dewatering can artificially lower the water table in adjacent areas and could lead to groundwater settlement of nearby private and public properties. Between 2010 and 2022, 1,349 building permits have been requested by the city of West Hollywood for subterranean parking and private homes with basements. 451 of them have been approved, with the rest under review. Groundwater in the Hollywood Sub-Basin is replenished by percolation of precipitation and stream flow from the higher areas to the north. Paving of streets and lining of drainage channels have decreased the amount of surface area open to direct percolation into underground aquifers, thereby limiting replenishment of the aquifer through a natural process. Some businesses treat and reuse some of that water, however, many do not. Sierra volunteers discovered that some water is being sent directly to storm drains, untreated, where it empties into an already heavily contaminated Ballona Creek and Santa Monica Bay. The Los Angeles Water Board classified Ballona Creek watershed as an impaired water body. An LA Sanitation Environmental Impact Review concluded in 2018 found that Ballona Creek and its related tributaries are impaired by pollutants such as trash, metal, styrofoam, coliform bacteria, and pesticides due to the watershed's large, dense population and its impervious ground surface that prevents urban runoff from infiltrating into underground aquifers. This water will not be ingested by humans, but any wildlife in the Ballona wetlands or in the Santa Monica Bay is exposed to these pollutants. Swimmers and anyone eating fish from the area may face exposure too. Walking around this neighborhood, you can catch some of this dewatering occurring on the corner of Melrose Ave and Almont Drive. You can see the 2-foot wide pipe gushing water 24/7, and you can even hear it before seeing it. So actually, if this works, and cross your fingers that it'll work, we can watch a video of it right now. So you can see how fast that water is moving, and you can hear it from the street. You can hear it, on the internet. It's crazy. So if we can hear it through our computers, it's pretty loud. Looking at the homes directly next to the dewatering site at the corner of Robertson and Ashcroft, and at the one next to the Restoration Hardware, which is also a dewatering site on West Knoll, you can see that homes are in that area have outer walls that are cracked from top to bottom, and that's probably likely due to subsidence from the dewatering. Additionally, an estimate for the electricity consumption of dewatering in West Hollywood is 74 submersive pumps needed for 180 days for one unit procedure, and that's 194,400 kilowatts per hour per unit procedure. So this is a really energy intensive practice. The dead trees are located near 2 dewatering sites on 546 Westburn Drive and Restoration Hardware. I'm giving you these addresses, so if you do feel like walking around and seeing it for yourself with your own two eyes, you certainly can. Upon applying for the, yes.
Put your screen back up, please. You have your computer screen showing, not your webinar screen.
Really, you don't see the... I'm going to try that again. Thanks for the heads up.
I saw the webinar screen.
You're seeing the webinar screen?
Not now, but I will.
Do you see it now? Because I'm seeing the...
Not right now.
There we go. That's better. All right. Is everyone good? Just someone shout me a yes.
No.
No?
Not yet.
What? Killing me. All right.
We were seeing it. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, never doing the how about now?
Now it's back.
All
Good.
right, great. I'm never doing
Now
it.
it's now it's how it should be. Yeah.
All right, good. Okay, well, I'm never doing a video again. It's good to know. Thank you. Okay, so upon applying for the NPDES permit required for dewatering, a fact sheet provided by the contractors at 546 Westbourne Drive stated that up to 1,000 gallons per day of groundwater will be discharged into the stormwater drain located along Westbourne Drive. The discharge from that storm drain flows into Ballona Creek. The construction project was estimated to last 6 months, and that's a potential of 180,000 gallons of water in a dry year, just heading straight to the Ballona Creek without being captured and without being treated. Nope. Gosh darn it. Okay, there we go. Oh, and the dewatering doesn't always stop after construction because the water keeps replenishing itself. So there's often continuous contaminated water being pumped into these storm drains. So before 2016, development projects were increasing somewhat slowly, but then after 2016, there was a huge boom in the number of permits requested, as shown in this chart. Cross-checking the number of permits with the groundwater elevations for the same period of 2010 to 2021, a Sierra Club volunteer researcher, Bushra Asfari, found a slight decrease in groundwater elevation by around 2 to 4 feet. One could speculate that this increase in development and revenue may have some correlation with the non-adjudication of the Hollywood Sub-Basin. I'm not saying it's definitely related, but one could speculate. So what exactly is an NPDES permit? Well, the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES permits, are issued by regional water quality control boards to discharge different types of wastewater by different entities. Per the federal EPA, the Clean Water Act prohibits anybody from discharging pollutants through a point source into a water of the United States unless they have an NPDES permit. In essence, the permit translates general requirements from the Clean Water Act into specific provisions tailored to the operations of each person discharging these pollutants. It's really concerning that we learned just this week that the EPA removed federal protections for 63% of wetlands to comply with the Supreme Court's decision in May. But it remains to be seen how this will impact dewatering policies. We really don't know yet. Per the California EPA, the NPDES permit requires the discharger, the developer in this case, to take samples of the groundwater intended to be discharged to the storm sewer system and make sure that any pollutant level doesn't exceed the limits described in their attachment E of the permit text. If this condition is satisfied, the discharger is granted the permit to pump groundwater to the network. In the case where this condition is not satisfied, the discharger is required to treat the groundwater before pumping to the network. Allegedly, failure to comply with any provisions of this order can result in monetary fines or criminal charges. Allegedly. After reviewing a list of permits granted by the NPDES shared with us by the LADWP board, it seems that some of these permits have been active since 1991. Currently, the developer can just check a box saying they will reuse the water with no real follow-up. What volunteers have been finding is that it's either not monitored or enforced. It is also unclear if the board has looked at the aggregate effects of dewatering from so many different sites. So contamination from one apartment building might not meet the thresholds, but considering how much development is occurring, how many of the projects are permanently dewatering, and if monitors are connecting the dots between the contamination from the dewatering, or assuming, are they connecting the dots that, hey, this contamination might be coming from these dewatering sites, or are they just assuming that it's from the known contamination, like pre-war manufacturing or old oil fields or something else. In my neighborhood in particular, there's a building that doesn't have the PVC pump like we just saw in that video, sending the water directly to the storm drain, doesn't have a station or a pumping station, rather it just spills right in the streets, picking up pollution along the way, and it sends it straight to the LA River, which, goes out to the ocean. Instead, what the Regional Water Quality Control Board should be doing is either insist that all water is captured and reused on site to mitigate the construction, or all water should be delivered to the sewer systems to be treated. So let's talk a little more about the Hollywood Sub-Basin and the water underneath West Hollywood. The Hollywood Sub-Basin is part of the coastal plains of Los Angeles groundwater basin. The Hollywood Sub-Basin is 10,500 acres or 16.4 square miles in volume, and the total storage capacity is estimated at about 200,000 acre feet. The California Department of Water Resources, or DWR, deemed the Hollywood Sub-Basin as unadjudicated, which means that no regulations or agreements specify how much water may be withdrawn from the basin, since less than 9,500 acre feet is pumped from it. The sub-basin was also given a really low priority by SGMA. Tests of groundwater quality are showing the existence of contaminants. However, the results of these tests are often not properly documented by a governmental entity. Many of the tests are done by consultants during construction processes. At present, the only major user of groundwater in the basin is the city of Beverly Hills, which withdraws. Sorry, can I ask someone to mute themselves? Check, that might be you. So you just joined us. Thanks. Storm sewers collecting storm water from the West Hollywood area lead to the Ballona Creek to the south, which in turn discharges into Santa Monica Bay. Over 10 miles downstream from the city of West Hollywood, there's a discharging point in the Dockweiler Beach, which has a water quality monitoring site. West Hollywood's soil and groundwater supply has suffered from historic contamination as a former oil field and interurban railroad destination. This contamination prevents the city from reusing its surface groundwater for irrigation or other uses without further treatment and purification. According to the city, this water is considered too contaminated to even be a reclaimed water resource often used for lawns or golf courses. So this water isn't even good enough for a golf course. That's really telling us something about what is in this water. Contamination of trichloroethylene, or TCE, is a degreasing solvent of metal parts, and PCEs or other solvents, especially used in dry cleaning activities, were found in the Hollywood Sub-Basin, in addition to hexavalent chromium. You can see the current locations and activities in the Hollywood Sub-Basin that introduce contaminants to the groundwater if you wanted to use the EnviroStore tool on the state's website. It's really cool. You can see it in real time and kind of stay on top of things. You can see the sites of auto maintenance, dry cleaning, metal plating, and railroad maintenance with contaminants of the PCE, TCE, benzene, and arsenic. So why are they wasting water? Well, Bushra asked the West Hollywood Community Development Department specifically, why isn't the dewatered water being reused? And they responded that there are several reasons why groundwater is just not currently being recycled, replenished, or reused. West Hollywood's soil and groundwater supply has the historic contamination from the oil field, from the interurban railroad destinations, and that contamination makes it really difficult and expensive to reuse any of that groundwater for anything without further treatment and purification. Currently, not any nearby viable facilities to store and treat groundwater pumped from West Hollywood construction projects. Beverly Hills Water is willing to explore the feasibility to do so at a later time, but that's once its non-potable water storage and treatment facility is constructed, and that's going to take a few more years. Projects desiring to reuse groundwater on site for applications such as irrigation or toilet flushing must go beyond the protocols of the Regional Water Quality Control Board and follow the LA County Department of Health's guidelines for alternate water sources, which sets rules for indoor and outdoor non-potable uses. Depending on the level of source contaminants, the treatment of groundwater under the Department of Health rules can extend beyond what is feasible for any given project to endure on its own. Basically, it's just too expensive. So let's talk about another big source of dewatering in the area, the Metro Purple Line. Construction of homes and buildings aren't the only form of dewatering. Anything that requires underground construction can require dewatering if it hits the water table. This can include metro or subway, if that's your phrase, construction. We were alarmed this summer to learn that the LA Metro is dewatering up to 550,000 gallons per day for Purple Line construction. The Metro is expanding the rail system to the west side with the Purple D Line Extension Transit Project. This new addition to Metro's network will add 7 new stations and a reliable high-speed connection between downtown and west side, and that's a great way to get cars off the road, you know. That is a good thing. 3 sections are going to be completed at different times between 2024 and 2027. So this is coming up soon. A source at the Metro provided us with some figures here on the slide, and it is alarming that none of this water is being replenished with the sheer volume of it. The supplemental environmental impact study for the project says that the water would be treated, and for water of that volume, a station would have to be built to pump it. So we can assume that it's not picking up runoff in the street, and with a budget like the counties, they're probably treating it and complying. So it might not be a water quality issue, but it's concerning how much of this water is not being captured. So this is really an issue of water quantity and conservation. You know, this water is just, it's not going to, it's not being reused. Let's talk about tree die-offs. When groundwater is overdrafted, like when there is dewatering present, tree roots sometimes can't reach the water basin. 147 million trees in California alone, mostly in the Sierra Nevada, have died since 2010, thanks in large part due to drought and global warming. In the Sierra Nevada, soil down to 50 feet below the trees has become deeply dry. Some can hold off 2 to 3 years, and while different species have different needs, we can kind of make an educated guess of what that means for denying water to trees near construction sites in urban areas that don't have, you know, the luxury of better quality air and less pollution and less humans around them. Trees are a necessary component of preventing heat islands. Heat islands are urbanized areas that experience higher temperatures than outlying areas. Structure such as buildings, roads, and other infrastructure absorb and re-emit the sun's heat more than a natural landscape such as forests or water bodies. Urban areas where these structures are highly concentrated and greenery is limited become islands of higher temperatures relative to outlying areas. Daytime temperatures in urban areas are about 1 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit higher than temperatures in outlying areas, and nighttime temperatures are about 2 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit higher. So let's talk about some conservation solutions in general. One of the things that SoCal has done pretty well is groundwater replenishment through spreading grounds and injection wells using recycled water. Orange County has world-renowned and the world's largest groundwater replenishment system. And Los Angeles County has the Water Replenishment District, which we love. They both have lessened our dependence on imported water, but of course we can do more. And starting with conservation, stormwater capture, and implementing more nature-based solutions. Orange County can and should implement stormwater capture projects. They already have a great environmental cleanup program funded by Measure M, which protects our waterways from vehicle-generated pollution on freeways and streets. They should combine a Green Streets program like LA Sanitation has in LA, or a program similar to LA County's Safe Clean Water program. As LA moves towards water independence, they're counting on capturing more stormwater with projects such as the Water Infiltration Project in Sun Valley Park, and moving towards dechannelizing some parts of the LA River and San Gabriel River to allow for more aquifer replenishment through the natural process of percolation. So basically ripping up that concrete that you see paved all over the river so that the water can get through that soil. Future projects planned at LADWP's Operation Next, Met's Pure Water Recycled Water Program, which we love. Las Virgenes has a pure water project, and the Water Replenishment District hopes to expand. And of course, as Sydney likes to remind us, sponge cities would be a great way to replenish groundwater, especially in a place like West Hollywood, which has so much concrete, or near a lot of the Purple Line construction areas. You know, anything we can to make that more of a permeable surface. We can also really push for more enforcement for outdoor use curtailment, and that's really pretty absent this year thanks to the record wet year that we have. They're not coming down on people about conservation. It's not an emergency this year, even though we don't have the groundwater replenishment that we need. They're not pushing it this year. And they can encourage and provide rebates for household gray water systems. Water agencies sometimes don't like to see that water, go through gray water programs and not come through the sewers where they can charge for it. But the water does replenish groundwater as it percolates through the soil. So, it's not a bad thing. Some solutions specific to the dewatering, and feel free to take a screenshot of this if you like. For your talking points for the future. Ideally, the dewatered water should be sent to the sewer system rather than the storm drains, even if it's treated. This would do two things. It would take away the risk of picking up pollution in the streets, like in my neighborhood, if it's not pumped through a station or a pipe straight to the storm drain. So, if they're doing everything they're supposed to and they're taking that water and pumping it directly, that's one thing. But a lot of them are just sending it through the streets. So if this water went directly to the sewer, that wouldn't be a problem. When water is sent straight to the oceans where the sea level is already rising, it takes away the possibility of recycling that water. Some sewer water is sent to recycling facilities to be reused for non-potable purposes. I mean, it doesn't happen everywhere, but in LA, there are areas where it does. Like our pals at Edward C. Little Recycling Center, and they recycle water for a variety of industrial and irrigation uses. They do industrial cooling towers, refinery for low pressure and for high pressure, boiler feed water, two different kinds of water, but they know what they're doing, or groundwater recharge. There's a lot they could do to recycle that water. This is really the future of water. Last week, Metropolitan's general manager, Adele Hashikliel, called it the fourth aqueduct. It's not another concrete artery to draw water from distant sources, but a set of projects that will harness local water supplies and help prepare for more intense extremes as temperatures continue to rise. So we really need to be thinking about ways to conserve water, recycle it, reuse it, and thinking of that water as another water source. And of course, we need stronger enforcement for all of these things, and for not treating or reusing the dewatered water. Fines that are actually high enough to change behavior. A $200 fine is not going to mean anything to these SoCal developers. They need a fine that's significant and substantial and actually going to deter this behavior. We need stronger enforcement for testing the water for the contaminants in addition to treating it. If they don't know what's in the water, how are the developers actually treating it? What are they treating it for? And then even if they do test, that testing needs to be repeated regularly, especially if the dewatering becomes permanent. Lots of factors can influence what contaminants are being dewatered. So this needs to happen on a regular basis and be reported. If only the construction folks know, well, what good does that do to the water agencies and the city and the Water Quality Board? The Hollywood Sub-Basin needs to be adjudicated and it needs to be given a higher priority. The basin is near many state water project dependent areas, and a remediated water basin can become another source of water and a step towards more water independence. Adjudication would provide more monitoring, and the water board may see a correlation between contamination and then dewatering more closely. If that's not clear, if the state is monitoring that, Bionda Creek is getting polluted and Santa Monica is getting polluted, and they just assume that it's from all of the usual sources of contamination from the last 100 years, but they don't necessarily monitor the dewatering sites, but dewatering could be causing more contamination. If they're not looking for that because it's not adjudicated, because it's not getting monitored heavily, it's not considered as critically important, are they going to notice the patterns? Are they going to notice upticks? So more focus, more effort on this basin, and we might start to collect more information from the data. So good news, and Charming might be able to give us some more details, but just last week, the executive director of the California Coastal Commission told a volunteer that if there is construction occurring on the coast, and if there's going to be dewatering, then they must include a special condition that the water has to be reused on the site. The Angeles Water Committee has requested volumetric data on the West Hollywood situation, so hopefully we'll get that soon. And then the Santa Ana Regional Water Quality Control Board said they would let them review data in person in their offices. So if anyone lives in the area and they want to go to the offices and they have some idea of what they're going to be looking at, let me know and I'll put you in touch with the right people so you can go check that out and help out the Water Committee. So we've got a couple actions, fortunately. With everything going on, there's a couple ways that we can tackle this problem. So let's start with the city of West Hollywood. You can tell the city of West Hollywood and the West Hollywood Planning Commission to stop issuing these permits for the basements and for the subterranean parking that require the dewatering and put that water being wasted back into beneficial use for the community. So this is the contact information of the folks in West Hollywood. You can tell them everything that you just learned about dewatering and how that water should go to the sewers, how it needs to be treated. And I can send you back to that slide and send you the talking points if you like. But let's tackle it one with the city of West Hollywood. Then let's also go with the LA County Water Plan. So they are in their planning session right now. They want to hear from us about all things water anyway, and they want to hear before September 18th. That's 2-3 weeks from now. So you can tell them right here in this link at the bottom, this is the link to the comment form. And you can click on that here right now. And if you can't, I'll send you everything at the end of this webinar, but you can tell them that water has to come from these construction sites, has to be captured and reused, or send it to the sewage systems where they will treat it. And then we've got that water that can potentially be reused and recycled. Or you can say those same things again, but to the LA County Regional Water Quality Control Board, because they are the ones who issue the permits, who are on top of all of this. This is their responsibility. So really, they're the ones that need to hear from us. There's 2 mails. You can send it to their comment letters, but then also the specific for the, if you want to talk specifically about the LA area one. Now you may be saying, well, I'm not from LA. What do I care about LA water problems? Well, we're all one big water system, right? SoCal takes a lot of water from Northern California. So the less dependent on Bay Delta water that Southern California is, the less water we'll be taking, and we'll, find water sources right here. So if we could reuse this water that's being dewatered, then we wouldn't be relying so heavily on imported water. So it's all connected. It's all one big artery, and we need to make that clear to LA. And so again, some talking points you can say at the bottom. And then you can also request for them to do a public hearing about this problem. And if maybe they heard it from enough of us, they might actually take that seriously Here's a potential subject line. Say you want to do a proposed public hearing about the dewatering permits. And lastly, this is what that webinar next week will be about, and they can give you the Heal the Bay one. They can give you a lot more information about this. But there's a new policy about making conservation a California way of life. This is going to be brought up to the State Water Board. They're taking comments from now through, from now through October 17th. And they're going to have a public hearing on the October 4th, and we'll all be there. We'll definitely let you know. We'll send out a million emails before we get to that point. But that would be a time to talk about the conservation as a way of life. You can also talk about the dewatering, but then we can also use these California's conservation as a way of life as talking points to the other folks I just mentioned. So it's all connected, right? An attitude of conservation, making that a policy is a good precedence for why we need to really change our policies on dewatering. Think of it when we tackled Met earlier, actually almost a year ago at this point, when we said to Met that their Bay Delta policy principles needed to change and that they need to look at the way that they become less reliable on the Bay Delta. And then we've been using that as talking points. Anytime they try to get wasteful with water, we say, hey, you said you weren't going to be wasting water. This is the same kind of thing. If this becomes a policy, then anytime they are being wasteful with water, we can say, hey, you already said that conservation is a way of life. So these are great talking points to use in each other. You know, if the conversation is about this California is a way of life, say, hey, can't be dewatering. If the topic is dewatering, say, hey, conservation as a way of life is a reason not to be dewatering. So it's all connected and helps each other. Lastly, here are my sources if you want to read any more about this stuff. And now we can talk about it. Okay, I see a million hands raised. I'll start with Charming because she's an expert and might answer any questions before we even get there. So Charming, you want to go first?
Hi, everyone. Actually, Katie, great presentation. Thank you. I first of all, I have to say, I did not even realize we had so much information on this. And so to have you put it all together is everything that's up in my head. So thank you for that.
You're
For
welcome.
putting it together for everyone to understand. I actually just wanted to make two quick points. One, I'm going to put in the chat, an article that we wrote on SGMA, which is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act of California. I know it's very confusing to people. This article makes it really, really simple. So you could use that. And the other thing I wanted to say was for conservation and way of life, I just want everyone to know that this is something Sierra Club supports. This is what our water committee was built on. And so, because, you know, Katie mentioned Heal the Bay, I don't want you to think it's only Heal the Bay supporting this, but this is something we support within Sierra Club. This is a Sierra Club Water Committee goal. And that's it.
Great, thanks. I know, Cindy, you've had your hand up for like 10 minutes, so go ahead. Oh, and also, Wes said I put the wrong link in there, so I'm putting the right link when it was talking about one of the petitions for the Bay Area stuff.
I actually had a few questions. So I want to be able to clarify how to take action. So I took a couple screenshots. So those two emails that were on the screenshot I took with the phone number, the 713 area code, those are the emails that I would email to about dewatering, right?
So there are 4 actions you can take. The one you're thinking of is the West Hollywood one with 2 folks on there who work for the city of West Hollywood. You can kind of say the same thing to all 4 of these folks in different capacities. Some of them are public comment hearings. Some of them are just folks you can email or call. And you're just saying the same thing about dewatering. So that slide that said the Dewatering Solutions, you can do that. I also just have the main points on each of those slides that say take action, or I'll just send it all to you at the end. I'll send to everyone who's in here. I'll send you all at the end.
But if it's gonna be on Google Docs, that's gonna be a problem for me. Unless I guess I could just go on the computer and look at it. But I just want to make sure I can do this easily because I really do want to take action. I mean, this is
Sure. So
an
I
event-
will
this-
send the Google Docs, but I'm also just going to send you the slides and then my notes. My notes have the same thing. So the notes is that's a Google Doc, but the Google Slides, if you can't open Google Docs, the Google Slide is kind of different. And then if you can't open any of this stuff, then I mean
It's
I'll
not-
email it to you. So
It's not that I can't open it. It's just that every time I go on Google Docs on my iPad, it doesn't enlarge and the voiceover doesn't read the darn thing.
all right,
So
I'll just send the links themselves to you in the body of an email.
I guess you could. Well,
Yeah,
when are the
let's do that.
public comments due? I mean,
October 4th was one of them, and is a hearing on October 4th, and they are due through October 18th. And then another was due through September 18th. So you've got a couple weeks.
and then you said the webinar next week is about something that we can talk about. Wait, so you said there was a webinar where I don't know if I
There
understood.
are
Like
two webinars coming up. One of them is about extreme heat, and one of them is about the California conservation as a way of life. So yes, Heal the Bay is doing that webinar, but as Tryman just said, you know, we are huge supporters of this. Anyone who loves water would be a supporter of this. It's all about conservation.
when is the conservation as a way of life one?
That one, that's the topic of it. It's about making this a policy and getting the state water board to adopt it. So all kinds of ways of
So
impact.
when is it? When is it?
That one is September 12th. No, that's September 7th from 10 to 12 a.m. That's the one Wes is going to take notes for me. So he can also send you the notes if you can't make it.
Well, I might actually. So you said it's September 12th. How
Yeah.
do I spell?
If you want to check your calendar later, we can go through the links and all that stuff. Do you have any other questions about the content of the presentation? And I can show you, I can help you with links and all that later.
Yeah, I do have another question. So when they were talking about, so it seems like this water that they're dewatering is contaminated with a bunch of chemicals, but I still have a hard time believing that it cannot be cleaned. If we can clean sewage water and turn it into
Oh, it
recycled
can
water,
be clean. It's just a matter of, are they cleaning it? And some of them are, you know, so we think that the purple line, I mean, that's the county doing all of that. So their supplemental impacts, their SEIS says that they are treating it and cleaning it, and assuming that the county is, you know, massive budget, massive operation going on for years, let's assume that they are treating it, because hopefully they should be. But also, if anyone wants to go, I don't even know how you would get down there and peek on them and see if they're actually doing it. We can probably figure out if they're actually following through. So folks like them probably are, but we've seen, volunteers have seen in the streets that some of these construction companies are not. So that's where it is. So they are supposed to be cleaning it before they discharge it. And ideally, they would just reroute it to the sewer where, you know, the sewer cleans it. So that's really what the goal is. And then Cindy, I'll let you ask one more before we let someone else have a turn.
Yeah, well,
Katie,
what I
can
was,
hold on, Sydney. Let
go
me
ahead.
expand on this for Sydney. So, Sydney, a lot of the times, you do have people with private homes that they want to build basements, and they continue to dewater after they have built those basements. And so what they do is they do have pumps, and they will pump out the water from their sites into the street. And that is untreated water being pumped into the drain. Again, like Katie said, it's not that it should not be treated. It should be treated before being pumped into the drain, but there is no enforcement to make sure that it is treated. And so they are getting away with it.
but what I was trying to say was that there was an argument that said that this water could not be used even for reclaimed water because it was too contaminated. I don't understand how could it be too contaminated? They can just clean the water just like they do with sewage water.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. So what they mean is to have that water be sent like directly to any source, because they're not hooked up to any way to reuse it. So like we've got water recycling centers for the Edward T. Little does like West Basin is Redondo Beach, El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, Inglewood, that area. So those folks have a hookup to a water recycling center, and they can get their water cleaned up. The folks near the San Gabriel River, they have access to Alfred Robles, and they can get their water cleaned up. But not everyone is near a treatment center, so the water needs to have a way of getting to a treatment center. And West Hollywood is saying that they don't have that. They don't have anyone near them without some very expensive, they'd have to do construction. They'd have to have that piped to them. So they're saying that, as it is now, that water can't be reused for anything because it's just too contaminated. It would have to be thoroughly treated, and they don't have the means or resources for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, Sydney, I just want to say, when they say that, that doesn't mean what they're saying is true. Okay, that is their excuse for not doing it. It's just an excuse, but it does not mean it cannot be done.
Yeah, West Hollywood, of all the places to complain about money, I would not put West Hollywood at the top of that list. So, Evelyn, let's go to Evelyn, and then Sydney, you can come back if you still have more questions.
First of all, Katie, that was a brilliant presentation.
Thank you.
And I'm really, thank you. And I'm hoping that you're gonna, it was recorded, so we'll be able to see it again and have hyperlinks to the links that you have.
Yeah,
So you'll share it
I'm
up.
gonna get someone to edit up the part where I couldn't.
Don't worry, no, stop. No. Because we're all human, and it even made it better for me because humans make the world go round, not robots. And so
Love it.
I really want to thank you for that excellent presentation. Okay. I just had a couple questions. One is I was looking on your list. Is the site on Melrose and Almont, which is also Doheny and Santa Monica, it's a giant corner or triangle. How long has that permit been active?
Ooh, I'd have to look through. I have a spreadsheet. I'd have to look through that to find that specific one. But when was so? Charmin, do you remember the last time you saw the water running, or the first time? I guess
Today. I saw it today.
Today.
And
Okay.
it started before COVID.
Yeah, and
And
the tree death discovery was in 2018, so at least 2018. And if we make an educated guess based on the Sierra Nevada trees, that took them 2 to 3 years to die, is the scientist predict guess there. So if we say maybe 2 to 3 years before 2018, or maybe they didn't need as much time to die, we can guess maybe 2 to 3 years before 2018.
Can we get a real, are those permit information available? Like, where did you find the info?
So. That list of permits was sent to someone by someone at LADWP. But then I think, no, Charmy, wasn't it a board member at LADWP?
It was sent to me. It was sent to me from the LA Water Board.
I don't want to put you
It's
on a
from the
list.
LA. Yeah, and Evelyn, I do have the list. It just give us a chance to get through. But Katie showed you guys just a snapshot of it. That list actually lists when the first NPDES permit first started. And really, there are some buildings there that have been there since like 1985. And so the Melrose Triangle is on there because I do remember seeing it. I just need to go through the Excel sheet.
Okay, I'm just dying to know. And number two, I didn't know about the metro dewatering. That really opens up, excuse my language, effing can of worms in my mind. And I'm wondering if there's been any kind of Sierra Club community, presentation or speaking to the board. Has a group of people spoke to the Metro board about this ever?
This only came out like a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. We complained to Metropolitan Water District, but it's not really a them thing. It's has anyone talked to Caltrans or Metro LA or
Yeah, I haven't spoken to Caltrans, but I have been speaking with the Metro staff because that's how I got the figures. And I did send some follow-up emails to them today, actually, to find out about treatment. How do they treat? Where do they treat? Etc. So hopefully we'll have some follow-up information at our next water committee meeting. From
Charming,
Metro.
you are a goddess queen. We all know that. But I wonder if we could maybe like create like a small group of us and just show up at the Metro board and just bring it up to public comment, because once it's verbally expressed on the board's agenda, it's written. I mean, maybe more people around the city and the county will recognize that this is happening. I mean, my mind is, I can't even comprehend it. It's
a lot of water.
mind blowing. So thank you for, again, your really good presentation and for all the information that you've uncovered, all of you. I mean,
Thanks. I love that idea, and I think it also makes me think about, okay, so Metro is underground, basements are underground. What else is underground that may potentially cause dewatering? So I'm thinking about what's that huge east-west boring thing, but really any kind of aqueduct, any pipeline, anything underground is going to cause some kind of dewatering, and we are just not in a place where, I mean, depending on how deep underground and all that, but dewatering.
Metro's gonna, and that's gonna be going on for a long time.
Yeah, at least
And
2027, but I've seen up to 15 years from now. So,
the
but
public
really,
really needs to be aware that this is happening, and maybe there's some way to force them to use that water for something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, something, my God. So anyways, I will be paying attention to this, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Crazy.
So
You said
I
it was
just
called the
looked,
purple line, right?
The
But-
purple
Was it-
line.
And that's the one that's dewatering over 500,000 gallons a day.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna try to remember that one.
Okay.
so
What
Katie
reason?
and Evelyn, I just looked it up. So the Melrose Triangle, which the video, that permit was issued in 29th of September 2016.
Wow.
So that's how long they've been dewatering.
7
most likely.
years.
Yeah.
What?
You know, I toured the LA Aqueduct. I did the LA Aqueduct tour up in Bishop, and there's the LA Aqueduct. It's like what, 12 spigots a day bring all the water. I mean, underground pumps. To me, that looks like one aqueduct pump from Mammoth. I mean, it's maybe it's not exactly, but I would imagine there's some, you know, correlation to how much is being pulled up to how much is being sent out. So I'm just suggesting that could be another way to visualize it for people. Because
Yeah. And Evelyn, I just saw your comment about how the Melrose Triangle, how there were a bunch of sandbags. Did you happen to see it around the hurricane, or what happened there?
it was before, but you know what? I don't know. Maybe this is illegal, and I hope I don't get arrested. But I literally pick the sandbags up, move them over, move the cloth, because you can hear it, and I think people need to see it. And it's so rinky-dink. They're covering it up with sandbags and cloth. I mean, come on.
Well, we also don't want anyone to fall in there. But
No, it's just
I get it.
sewer. It's a sewer. I mean, people, there's open sewers everywhere. I mean, it's like it's literally going in the sewer.
Yeah.
So
What a grave injustice.
yeah, exactly, Sydney. Happy birthday.
Thanks. I'm not so happy right now though.
Happy. There's hope.
There'll be hope.
I
Karen,
do have a question. Oh,
let's let Karen have a turn first.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for this presentation. And what it did was it's also very good timing, because it opened up for me a bunch of questions about dewatering with some construction that is currently going on in Sacramento. And I missed last week because I was commenting on the
Right.
general plan, and I was up till like 4 a.m, 2 nights in a row because the thing was so long. But they've just released their master EIR for the 2040 general plan. And I had raised a bunch of questions about the general plan and too much cement and no place for the water to go, and it can't percolate back into the water table. But now I've got a bunch more issues I can raise about dewatering. I've got 45 days to review the master EIR. So I just wanted to say thank you. Your specifics were LA, but LA is not the only place. And
once you read that New York Times article, you'll see the whole country needs to be thinking about their dewatering and their waste of groundwater. It is a problem everywhere. But Karen, you were the one who requested the dewatering webinar like a month ago, 2 months ago. So thank you. So
and please send the link to that.
I'll send the link to everyone who
that article out, because I'm probably going to want to quote it in my the EIR comments. They are so stupidly cementing over. They're not leaving enough room for adequate drainage when we get heavy rains, which
if they're gonna cement, use Sydney's favorite, the sponge cities. It's that permeable cement that lets the water percolate through it.
I used the term on the general plan, and I talked, and they had it set up so you could comment going all the way through on different parts of it. And so I kept raising it as it applied to different places, and I used the term sponge city several times. So that was a helpful term. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. This is perfect timing. And there's a corridor 1 block over from me that's a mixed use corridor. And there are now 4 large apartment buildings, all of which have below ground parking. And it also makes me very wary for all of our trees. So this has been, I'm just really grateful for this, because it's been very, very helpful, and it's given me a whole additional thing to comment on.
Yay, thanks, Karen. Yeah, let us know the feedback you get from that and the whole long process. I'm sure it'll be a year before you hear from them, but let us know what happens with that. And
and
the rain gardens, don't forget the rain gardens.
Yeah, and we'll
Karen,
called Trees for Sacramento, and I will take it to that group too. So
Karen,
I'll comment on this.
Fantastic, I love that.
Karen,
let's hear from
Karen, this is Sydney. I just want to thank you for using the term sponge cities and trying to spread that to whatever thing that you were writing in.
Well, I thank you for being the one here that started talking about it, because I thought, oh, that's the perfect word for what I'm trying to convey.
And also, Karen, I know you can't open links while you have your Zoom open, but Meg put another or a shorter link to the New York Times article and a quote in the chat if you do want to check it out. And let's hear from another NorCal person, Katya.
Hey, great presentation, Katie. And this is really interesting because, it's something that we look when I see EIRs that have a lot of dewatering. I try to comment on that and ask them to do more. But I did post a couple links in the chat to things from the city of Palo Alto. They adopted an ordinance. I think it's been like 5 years now, but I think it's a really good ordinance. I don't remember all the details right now. But Palo Alto being a very wealthy place and people wanting to increase their square footage of their houses, but there's height limits to going up. So there's extreme pressure on basement construction for houses. And then there's also commercial developments that have underground construction. And so this ordinance, some of the things I know it has in it, you can look at it in more detail if you want to get more ideas, but you have to do a dewatering plan. It includes, construction requirements that will reduce the amount of dewatering and that will prevent the need for permanent dewatering. There's requirements to look at different methods for using the water. So those all have to be exhausted before you can release anything to the storm drains. And yeah, monitoring, you have to install a monitoring well to, and you can only, dewater certain volumes over and certain time limits, so it's pretty good job. There was, a group called Save Palo Alto's Groundwater, which was a lot of really smart people who worked on it for a long time and who knew what they were talking about. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Thanks, Katja. That's interesting. I'm going to take a look, and then I'm going to put in the chat now, Sierra Club's infill policy. That page has a bunch of different infill resources that, because I get it, no one wants their view impaired, and maybe there's other safety earthquake related things about buildings going too high, but bigger buildings mean more people can live in them for more affordably. We are in a huge housing affordability crisis in California, so that could be an argument too into why they maybe should let buildings get taller instead of go lower. Maybe just something to consider there. Yeah, I'll definitely take a look. That's interesting.
Yeah, send me a link to that policy too.
Sure. Yeah, you got it.
I also want to know how to join the conservation webinar next week. It's on a Tuesday.
I'll
right?
send you. Yeah, I'll send you a link to that.
Somebody wants, I don't know, Katie, if you want to, I put a couple links in there, but I didn't put a link to the ordinance, but it turns out it was a red line, so it's not the final one. But I did put a link to how to guidelines for people who are doing underwater construction.
Yeah, I'm gonna open up all of these links, and I'll send anything relevant to everyone.
Yeah, let me know if you want me to find more information.
Yeah, I do. I'm curious about this. I think there's a whole. Now, as a staffer, I might not be able to say this, but maybe someone could start some kind of task force or subcommittee on some water committee. I won't suggest a particular water committee or a particular conservation committee if your chapter doesn't have a water committee, but maybe someone would be interested in taking up some kind of dewatering task force. So we can look at different parts of the state, because I mean, we're seeing it affects the whole country. Also, okay, so the person who put the short, I think it was Meg, put the shorter New York Times link in there. I think my link was super long because it's a free one. So if you won't get the paywalls, because Maven's Notebook paid for the gift thing. So that's why it's so long, just FYI. But anyway, yeah, maybe a task force could look at all of these kinds of dewatering things. And let's
I wish I had the ability to do it.
Yeah, we all have our own abilities. Let's hear from Nancy.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was really incredible.
You're very welcome.
Definitely eye-opening. And I've watched the Coastal Commission approve so many basements that are right on the water, as well as a huge parking lot, underground parking lot that's obviously going to be dewatered in Venice. And they just think it's wonderful. So, but my question is, if the developers have to go to, say, the water departments to get the permits for the dewatering, how much do they have to pay, and what's that based on? And then where does that money go? Because then, in fact, I'm thinking in terms of our water department, water agency, that should be included in terms of water availability when they're saying that we don't have any water, so it should be put into the mix. I know that the purple pipes, which is the recycled water, there's been a move actually in Northern California to have more of those, and they're trying to treat them and everything else. But the whole idea of dewatering has not really been looked at, as well as people do not realize how close to the ground, because so many streams have been covered up and not daylighted. They don't realize where all these water sources are, so they're kind of like surprised when there's a flood, and in fact the water is right there under the ground, and they don't realize that. So I'm just wondering if you know anything about how the permits are given and if they have to pay annually? Maybe these people who have done it since, 1997 are just paid one time and that was it. So thanks.
So, yeah, so I just found the fee schedule. I'd have to look closer to see what specific type, because you can get a permit for different kinds of water discharge. It's not necessarily just a construction project, and it depends on a few different things. Looks like there's an application fee for at least this type of fill and excavation. It's about $2,000, and then $1,700 for an annual fee, or if it's a really large size, it looks like it's depending on the size between $18,000 and up to $179,000, depending on like the size and scale of the project. But I'd have to go through and see specifics, but the numbers are all looking like in those same ballparks. So I mean, it does seem like something that people with more wealth would do, but also in California, people with basements tend to have more resources than other folks. So that's something to think about. In terms of where the money goes, let's see. So the one collecting that would be, I don't know if that would be the city or the county or both, because it would be the city that issues. No, you request the permit from the city, and then it's the regional quality board that permits it, right? So
The money would go to the water board. The city permit, other permits, the city would collect money for other permits, but for an NPDES permit, that actually goes to the water board.
And they're the ones who do the approval. And as of 2021, there's still 450 waiting approval just for West Hollywood alone.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot.
So that would go into their general fund, probably, just the water district's general fund. And then that would be used for whatever they wanted to use it for versus.
I don't want to say confidently yes. Maybe they have that going to a specific fund. I'd like to say ideally it's anything related to it, but not quite sure. But I can look into that for you. That can be this could be a problem.
I have a question. So how come the dewatering of I think it was the purple line you said, something that video that you showed us, that's been going on since 2016 and we're just now hearing about it? How come people are just now talking about it?
Well, Sierra Club Angeles chapter has been talking about it since 2018, but no, what that video was the Melrose Triangle. That's the homes and little businesses in West Hollywood. Purple line is massive scale, and that's different. That's a different example.
Well, the West Hollywood development is a Gensler development. It's a mixed use, and they dug deep because it's parking. So it's a whole block. It's really a whole city block. It's not just a residential development. It's a massive development. But I just had a brainstorm just by listening, and I'm wondering if this makes any sense. Charming, tell me if it does, and you guys. The monitoring council. I wonder if Katie, you could do this presentation, maybe add some of the numbers that Nancy brought up, which is really important information, but maybe you could do a presentation to the monitoring council, because monitoring council, I put a link in the chat of what it is. It's kind of like citizen science meets academia meets public meets policy. I mean, it's read about it. And I think we could probably get something like this on the agenda, and it might be a good way to kind of open this up to the state. The monitoring council is a little heavy with Northern Cal because there's just a lot of members from NorCal. And so I like the idea that this is a SoCal kind of alarm. But I don't know, it's just a thought. Charming, what do you think about that?
Oh, no, it's a good thought. It's one of the reasons I said to Katie that if folks want to send in comments, they can send comments to the California Regional Water Quality Control Board and the LA Regional Water Quality Control Board, because when push comes to shove, the decision makers are up there. And so the state water board State Water Resources Quality Control Board, they are the ones who are going to decide and say, okay, we need to do more about watering. So whoever we can speak with, that's part of the solution. And I mean, I have been speaking out at meetings, whether it's State Water Board or LA Water Board or Santa Ana Regional Water Quality Control Board. But I think that's a great idea if they would allow us the time, and we can always check. If they would give us
It's
at
not
least
the water board, it's the monitoring council. But the
council,
monitoring
yeah.
is part of the water, it's under the water board's jurisdiction, and they have representatives from, I mean, you can, it just feels like it might be kind of a good way to slip in there. And then it, you know, so I think this is a really good presentation, and it'll just get better. And I think you're the person to present it, Katie. So
Yeah, I'm excited. And every time I redo a presentation, they do get better. So yes, happily.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it needs to get better. I'm just saying it's just the way it
No,
is. But
they can always, yeah. So yeah, for sure, definitely. And if you happen to know anyone on the monitoring council, are you on?
I chair the Safe to Drink work group, which you're all welcome to be a part of. But this could be for the whole board, and you can see the topics they have.
Mhm.
I don't know where this fits in. Safe to Drink seems like it should, but it just seems like getting it on their radar. They might not even be aware of this. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about this offline, I guess.
Yeah, let's talk next week. I'm down for sure. Awesome. Okay, and then I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions or comments in the chat. Cindy said it's a grave injustice. Yes, you are right. And everyone take a look at Katya. She put the links in there for the construction ordinance. If you're interested, Penny wants to know, will there still be water left by the time recycling facilities are built? You know, I actually have heard from this really just a grumpy Gus at a recycling center who kind of said that. And I was like, you're not someone who should be saying things like that. That's a comment you hear from the public, but not someone who works in a place like this. And yeah, I mean, there are some people who think we're going to run out of water, that we won't have the volume of it, especially if we have multiple recycling facilities. I just think that's not true, that people are, you know, the idea of recycling is that the water stays within the system. So when you dump it out to the ocean, yeah, it's a lot harder to get that water back. You need a hurricane that's going to dump it in my house again to get that water, which, by the way, let me just put it out there. I took that water and I put it in the toilet so that it goes to the sewer. So it's not going to the storm drain. Everyone, put your flood water in the toilet. But when you put the water in the toilet from your flood or whatever it is, as long as it makes its way to the sewer systems, that water can all get reused. And if we have the resources, the capacity, the political will to have more water be connected to these recycling systems, then yeah, absolutely we'll have the water. If we can get this dewatered water to be channeled to recycling facilities, then yeah, that's not going to be a problem. It's just about and you know, even in dry years, you know, it's just about, are we going to get the water from where it is to the places where it can be recycled? And it does take time, it does take money, it does take construction, but we're kind of running out of other options with climate change. So we have to, and it's just a matter of, will they understand it sooner rather than later? And if you read that article that came out last week, the one I quoted about Adele, and a lot of people have noticed, if you've seen it, the link is in the agenda, that that there's one with like the Metropolitan seal behind his head, so it's kind of like a crown. That one, if you read that, that's where he's talking about the fourth aqueduct. But there's a lot of good points in there that we have been saying all along, that finally Adele is saying, that finally Metropolitan, that other water agencies are saying, that maybe 2 years ago they would not say these things out loud and they would complain about it, but now they are starting to understand the severity of the situation. And I think with the last 2 years, with the extreme dry and the extreme wet, they get it. So I think that a lot of the important folks are coming around to our side and they get it.
Adele is relatively new on the board, and I think he's an excellent person. I think, you know, it's good we have him now. I think he always was sort of, I believe, on our side. It's just he's in the position now to do things. So
Yeah, I think he was stuck in a rock and a hard place with a lot of people to make happy, or he's not going to keep his job. But I think that he's getting more people to understand our side. And that's a really important skill and an asset that, he's an asset for us. So fantastic.
So much more reliable than the Delta Tunnel.
Exactly.
That's been the point, that all these other things, then we don't need that. We haven't put all of our eggs in one basket that will dry up. And on that note, I've got to leave. So thank you again. It was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll send you all the links and anything you need. And thanks for all your work. Yeah, Karen emailed me last week. She was up until 4 a.m. working on her comments. So good job. Excellent.
Yeah, it was comments on our general plan in Sacramento. And they've got great infill stuff, but they have forgotten to leave any place for the water to drain. So infill with flooding will not be helpful.
Or mosquitoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go, Karen. And great job. And Meg put a couple links about Orange County's water recycling, if anyone wants to see more about that in their expansion. So that's great. And Lionel, yeah, all of this is in the agenda, and I'm going to send everything out to anyone who's in this webinar. So I'll send you all the links, anything you need to know. And go ahead.
I feel like this is like way more information than I am like able
It's
to
a lot. It's definitely a lot of information.
Like, I feel like we need to find a way to talk on our own. Like, are you busy tomorrow?
I am, but we'll figure it out. I'll send you everything outside of a Google document in a way you can open it and read it.
I feel like I'm gonna get confused though. I mean,
I'll help you. Don't worry.
But I might just call that number that I took that screenshot in, and then talk to them about dewatering.
You should definitely do that. Definitely call. I mean, they also I think a lot of people in the city do love to hear from people. I called to complain about cat shelters last week, and I think they really just love to hear my thoughts on cats. So, go ahead, call the city, call the government. They need to hear from us. We pay them. Do it.
So who's that number for again? That's the 713.
That was the West Hollywood, but don't worry. I'll give you all the phone numbers that you need, and don't try to just guess them. I'll send you everything you need. Don't worry.
I think that this is only going to make a difference if more people, like besides me, call in and talk about it or something, because I only have so much power. So
yeah, they'll hear from all of us. And it sounds like there's some, murmurs of maybe a task force for all of this, or some kind of interest that will not include Charming, because she's a very busy woman. But a lot of us seem to have an interest in this dewatering, and with the Purple Line and West Hollywood. But it's got me thinking about, where else do they put stuff underground? Who's got bunkers out there, and all these bunkers out here that are causing stuff, or anything you can put underground? What kind of dewatering mess are we creating?
I just wonder, why is it a problem like nationwide? How come we weren't using the water to begin with? Like 10 or 15 years ago.
Oh, well, people are greedy, and we really just farmed the bejesus out of this country, and we really overdrafted water all over the place. America loves corn and cattle, so we've taken a lot of that water, and we took more than we could put back, and now we're in a pickle.
Well, we could have taken some of that dewatered water, filtered it somehow, and then used it for farms and stuff.
That's what we're saying. We're saying we gotta, water agencies need to be thinking about that. Thanks, Evelyn. Oh, she's gone. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're saying, that now as we understand how serious and dangerous this situation is, they need to figure out a way to stop the dewatering, or dewater and treat it and put it somewhere, or ideally take that dewatered water, put it in the sewer, so it's treated and put back into the system, and then find ways to use it.
Yeah. What about other countries like Canada, European Union, Australia? I wonder what they do.
I don't know about international dewatering situations, but we talked a couple weeks ago about the water crises around the world. We are not the only one having a rough time of it. As you can imagine, the Middle East And then Italy, Mediterranean areas are hit hard, Australia, and then South Asia, they probably would have been okay, but they're densely populated, so the need for water is making things harder too with their water situations. I mean, in general, the planet is getting hotter, so it makes the water situation almost everywhere more challenging. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Anyone just have thoughts and feelings they want to share about dewatering and this basically brand new mess that we all just discovered that I haven't really heard from anyone besides folks in Sierra Club talking about this? Kind of like we're on to something here that could be a big thing in the future. Leslie?
Yeah, I had put in the chat earlier about the Coastal Commission also had been granting these permits for basements and subterranean parking.
Yeah,
And
Tristan was talking about that too. Yeah.
yeah, I was shocked, you know, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago anyway, down in Newport, they were giving a permit for this place. And, you know, it takes huge amounts of energy as well. And I just think that these issues need to be raised again and again. And I feel like the Coastal Commission is listening and considering it more now. But again, yeah, the more people that raise the issue and point it out, and the energy related as well as the wasting of water, it's really important. And so thanks.
You're welcome. In my update, I said that it was just last week that the executive director of the Coastal Commission said that if there's going to be construction occurring along the coast and there's going to be dewatering, they have to include a special condition that that water has to be reused on the site. But I think in general, especially after California's first hurricane in 84 years, putting a basement on the coast when that whole coast is just, the erosion is out of control thanks to invasive succulents, everything is falling in the ocean. I don't know that you should put a basement that close to the ocean, but
Maybe we should tell them that.
we should. You should, Sydney, call them.
Who is it, the California Coastal Commission?
Yes. Yeah.
I think this is going to be on my to-do list for tomorrow for my birthday.
Well, don't do it on your birthday. You can go enjoy your birthday, but then you know,
Well, I'm not
afterwards.
gonna be able to do something till tomorrow night anyway, so I don't even know what I'm doing during the day, to be honest.
All right. Then
The
I guess
Coastal Commission
call the
is
coastal
meeting next week too, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. That's a better time.
They're meeting
sorry.
next week, the Coastal Commission, and you can via Zoom.
Oh, what day, what time?
You know what, Sydney, I'll find it and maybe you and I we call into that and we comment on basements and dewatering and all kinds of things.
I
That's
guess
great.
if I have to skip a class or something, I should skip, because I mean this seems like it could be a life or death
Don't
situation.
skip school to call the Coastal Commission. We'll figure it out. You can email them.
It's not really school, but I'm just like, at this point, this is kind of all I care about, and like
Thanks.
I just, everything's wrong with the world. I'm just so
You know, we can go down that rabbit hole all day. Nancy, thanks for joining us. Charmy, you have something to say?
Yes, I was just saying, you know, one of the reasons we have not had a very formal dewatering campaign yet is because there's still so much data missing about how much is being dewatered. So before we start a campaign, that's just describing my work process. And Leslie's part of my water committee; she knows that very well. Katya as well, and Nancy. That I like to have all the answers. And we need to know how much water is being dewatered and when it's being dewatered, and then come up with lots of solutions. And the difficult thing about this is actually coming up with the solutions. That actually has been pretty difficult, especially like Katie said, where maybe there might not be sewer connections, or the city is saying they don't have enough money. But I'm hoping we really will have a lot of the volumetric data for at least LA County and Orange County, and that we can start from there. And excuse me, what Katia provided, I will take a look at that ordinance because I'm sure it will give us some answers as well. Just
Yeah, I
wanted to
don't
say
even
that.
know where you would find the volumetric data. That was not something I could find. Everything that I found for this,
Also, just
most-
quickly, Charming and Katie, I think I have some materials that I saved from back when they were advocating on it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, if you find it interesting, let me know. I'll try to send you more.
yes, please do. Yeah. I think I'll start a folder of just stuff we can start looking into and come up with a plan. Yeah, most of the things I found was either stuff Sierra Club folks had already found. That amazing report that hope I'm not butchering their name, Bushra started, and then a lot of it though was from private companies that do dewatering that know a little bit about it, but they're not coming at it from our perspective. We don't have the same priorities when we talk about dewatering, so that's pretty frustrating. Yeah. Sydney, did you have anything else? Your hand is still up. That's
I
okay.
just would like, I would just like to link to join the conservation meeting next week,
I'll send you all the links. Yeah.
the California Coastal Commission.
Yep. Yeah, I'll find it.
And it meets for 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So they
you know
usually
what
have
time?
public comment at the beginning.
Do you know what time they meet?
I think it starts at 9.
It starts at 9 every morning. Usually they have public comment 1 hour, the first hour until about 10. Sometimes it'll go longer. You do need to sign up the day in advance. So, but you just go to the website. I put that in the chat. Go to the website, click on the meeting agenda, and then there's a thing that comes for speaker, and you just put in your name and and they'll call you virtually.
I don't see the link.
Yeah, actually, Nancy, I don't see the link either. I see you talking about it. I think I just found it, but if you've
I just put a note in the chat on it on how you can meet.
Coastal.ca.gov.
Anyhow, yeah, coastal. Yeah, just Google Coastal Commission. It's
there you go, I got it.
And then meetings. Yeah.
it's a really good way to keep up to date also on just what's going on the coast that you might not be aware of. Issues you might see in Southern California are similar to Northern California, but we just don't know what's really going on in each area. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do seem to really appreciate the public being involved and speaking,
yes.
commenting.
Good.
So I'm on their website. I don't know. So how
Go
do
to
I
meetings?
I see a
Sydney,
thing
I
that
put
says
it in the
virtual.
chat. It's in the chat.
Okay.
Go to agenda, current meeting agenda, and then it says submit a speaker request. You just click on that.
It's in the middle of the page in a big green pill.
Oh, submit a speaker request.
Yeah.
Click on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see it says Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then you said it starts at 9?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
All right,
you
I'll
find public comment to click on for public
And there's
comment.
also an email, executive staff at Coastal, if you want to just email them instead of trying to speak.
okay.
Katie, I was just thinking maybe you could find a university student to be an intern or to do a project on evaluating some of the data and collecting some of the volumetrics and so on. I mean, that could be a good project.
Yeah, and I'd have to talk to a whole bunch of people about an intern. Yeah, we pay our interns, and then that that means funding. But definitely a volunteer, and I can talk to people about paying an intern. It would probably take a while. Probably next semester is my guess, but we can look into it.
All right, I think I'm gonna head off now.
Okay, well, happy birthday, Sydney. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Thanks. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, so I will send everyone who attended this meeting, you'll get the slides, my notes. You can click on the links in the slides, and then I opened every link that was in the chat. So I will put all of those in an email as well. And Sydney's Soap Company, and then some of us will read Katya's ordinance and all of these meetings. Anything else?
Betty,
This is slightly an
the
aside. Can I
super blue
just?
moon- Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the super blue moon is about to rise.
Ooh, okay, let's
Oh.
look
Check
at
it
that.
out after this meeting.
Yeah, go take a look.
Katie, do you know anything about solar panels covering the
The aqueduct.
aqueduct? Yeah, I
We've
keep
been talking about
hearing.
it for years.
Yeah.
Sierra Club, I think, is officially neutral because yes, covering water and reducing evaporation, but lots of lithium in the batteries. So I want to say we're neutral, but I can double check if that has changed.
So I will say something. That idea actually came from our water committee.
Oh, nice.
To the Met Board, many years ago, we had a competition where we were looking for innovators. Met had sponsored the competition with an Australian company. It's something we did. Leslie, you should remember that. We did that many years ago, and that was where that idea actually was born, to cover the aqueduct with solar panels.
I love the idea. I remember Adele mentioned it in his interview when they had him go through that whole witch hunt thing. And I mean, I still think it's really cool, but last I heard we were officially neutral though, weren't we?
No, I don't think we have a position. There's no position on it.
I will check with the person who told me that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it has come up a lot in the last 2 weeks. Is there a new push?
I think there might be a
Not-
demonstration project starting in the Central Valley somewhere. I could be wrong.
You have to be careful because the Bay chapter, National has one way of thinking and the Bay chapter has another way of thinking, and they got in trouble because they were opposing a solar farm, which is a very complicated thing. Anyways, it was kind of, once again, kind of an embarrassing thing because it showed both sides of the club, and I don't know. I think they finally have ironed it out. Basically, that National's stance on solar farms is going to stand. But you could talk to, I don't know, somebody in the Bay chapter who knows more. Maybe Norman LaForce. But it was an interesting situation. So solar panels are. I can understand why a neutral stance would be taken. Thanks.
Oh, but it always depends on the details too, and how and where and so forth.
Yeah, there is a pilot, and it's kind of a unique situation. I think it's in Tulare, and the owner of the canal is also has their own electric utility. So that makes it easier jurisdictionally. It's all within one jurisdiction. So as you know, whenever something goes over multiple jurisdictions, like California Aqueduct, it's harder.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because they have to sell the energy to someone, and that's somebody who.
Interesting. Thank you for that.
Dan O'Connell at the Central Valley Justice Coalition. I'll talk to them. I'll see if they know anything. That's yeah. I'll let you know, Liz.
Great. Keep up the good work, everybody.
Thanks, Les. Thanks to everyone. Everyone here contributed so much, and I wouldn't have been able to find anything in research if Angela's chapter hadn't paved the way. So excellent work, folks, and I'll send you all of your info soon, and happy Labor Day. Take care, everyone.
Likewise.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, folks.